We're starting with what's happening in Lebanon. Saudi Arabia has asked all of its citizens to quickly leave Lebanon. What is happening on ground? What does this mean for the region? For this, we have with us Shivan, who has all the updates. Over to you.
Thanks, Im. We're, of course, discussing Saudi Arabia and Iran, which have been news ever since March, when China brokered the deal between the two nations to mend their differences and come on the same page. But now, is Saudi Arabia rethinking its ties with Iran? Now, Saudi Arabia recently called on its citizens to quickly leave Lebanese territory, where Iran-backed Hezbollah group wields significant power. Now, rival armed groups are clashing in the Palestinian camp of el-Hilweh in the country's south. This is the largest of 12 Palestinian camps in Lebanon, which hosts around 80,000 of up to 250,000 Palestinian refugees, which are there countrywide. Now, the clashes come at a time when the United States is pushing for a Saudi-Israel normalization deal. Now, some analysts say that the Saudi-Iran deal in March challenged Washington's role as the main outside power broker in West Asia. Because China stepped in, it mended the differences between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and US was cornered out of the West Asian region. There were a lot of updates on how US is losing influence in the region, but now there seems to be a backshift of power. Now, here's a look at what's brewing in the region. Let's start right off. Now, in March, what I just mentioned, this year, Iran and Saudi Arabia agreed to re-establish relations after years of hostility. The deal, which was brokered by none other than China, was announced after days of undisclosed talks in Beijing between top officials from the two nations. Now, the absence of ties between the two countries threatened stability and security in the Gulf and helped fuel conflicts in West Asia, from Yemen all the way to Syria. Now, let's quickly analyze the earlier friction points. Saudi Arabia cut ties with Iran in 2016. That's pretty much when the ties were let off, and its embassy. This is what happened in 2016 when its embassy in Tehran was stormed during a dispute over Riyadh's execution of a Shia Muslim cleric. Now, the kingdom had also blamed Iran for missile and drone attacks on its oil facilities in 2019, as well as attacks on tankers in Gulf waters. Iran had denied the charges in the past. Iran-aligned Houthi rebels in Yemen have also allegedly carried out cross-border missile and drone attacks into Saudi Arabia. Now, the long-standing strategic ties between US and Saudi strained during the Biden administration. What I just mentioned earlier, that Saudi Arabia and US, they did have a sort of a fallout. And of course, they have been on the same page for a long time, because this all happened in Joe Biden's administration. So he is taking the brunt of it at the moment. The issues include the kingdom's human rights record, the Yemen war, and recently ties with Russia and OPEC plus production, where, of course, Saudi Arabia and Russia were on the same page, which obviously did not go well with the US. Now, there are calls for a political reconciliation in Lebanon, which is facing an unprecedented financial meltdown. Now, Iran-backed Hezbollah, this group wields significant power in Lebanon, where it operates as both a Shia political party and an armed group. Next, we talk about United States, which has stepped up diplomatic efforts to reconcile two regional powerhouses, Saudi Arabia and Israel. They are looking at a rapprochement between these two nations, because that will directly benefit the United States. Now, some analysts say that a potential Saudi-Israel deal could marginalize the Palestinian cause. They say that it would irk Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, all three together. So now the big question is Saudi Arabia once again rethinking its relationship with foe turned friend turned, which might have now again turned into a foe, Iran? We're talking about Saudi and Iran ties, and how will China take to all of this? We will explore all of this on World DNA at WION World as well.